Ayanna Pressley, Summer Lee, Ilhan Omar. And at one point, Ayanna Pressley is giving her remarks, and some reporter calls out to Ilhan Omar and asks why she doesn't want the Israelis to go after Hamas, who committed atrocities against Israelis. And this was her response.
Tortured, killed their babies and children, and still have them hostage. Why don't you want the Israelis to go after the terrorists that did that? How many more killings is enough for you? Is it 1,000 more? 2,000 more? 3,000 more? How many more Palestinians would make you happy if they died? Will you be fine if all of the people of Gaza were gone? Would that make you happy? Would that be the thing that makes you proud? And maybe that's the question you should ask Ritchie. Is he okay? How many more Palestinian lives is he comfortable with? Because I am not comfortable with any more.
Any other questions?
This is, the question must have been prefaced by remarks or something that Ritchie Torres from, I'm not sure which district it is in New York, represents, who has been about as bloodthirsty for Palestinian lives as one could imagine.
Yeah, before this crisis, he was going after that valedictorian at one of the CUNY schools who spoke about Palestinian rights.
Yeah,
because that's a good use of time as a Democratic member of Congress.
Adam Johnson had a good piece on him. He represents the poorest district by a long shot in this country, and all he does is tweet about Israel all the time, including most recently like calling the Jewish Voices for Peace and those sorts of organizations like fringe, and he really wants to make sure that they're not seen as representative or legitimate.
And Representative Omar, I think, had to leave at that point. The press briefing.
She's a refugee. She was a refugee.
Yes,
she's both Muslim and then also somebody who is the victim of a crisis where she had to leave her home, and understood what that horror is. And there are going to be many Palestinian refugees, and those same forces who are saying, okay, it's fine for Gaza to be bombed to smithereens, are also saying, well, we can't take those Palestinians as refugees when they come to the United States. So, like, there are many layers of how this is personal for a lot of people in Congress. I know that those voices, they prefer them to be marginalized, but that's why it's so important to have someone like Ilhan Omar there, because she understands what the pain of this is.
There's another person, Josh Gottheimer, who Ryan Grimm reported that at a Dem meeting, this was on the 11th, Susan Wild said that she was working to organize interfaith gatherings, but worried that Muslims in the Lehigh Valley may not feel comfortable. And Josh Gottheimer shouted, because they're guilty. And like that,
Muslims in general,
and like that sort of like rank bigotry, that's the sort of thing like we see a lot of policing of Ilhan Omar and Rashid Tlaib. They would never think that about Jewish people. They would never they would much less yell it out amidst a meeting of their caucus. And we've just moved on from it. Because
well, they might have thought that about Jewish people 50 years ago with the dual loyalty thing, right? I mean,
no, I'm talking specifically these representatives today.
Now, but it is a very old trope for people who are speaking out for a minority group that they have dual loyalty. It's an anti-Semitic trope too, right?
Yeah, well, it's just bigotry, and like we've just moved on from it. I think because Hakeem Jeffries shares some of that. Like the Democrats are on trial, in my opinion, right now about Islamophobia, and like that we haven't heard really any peep from that. Besides Ilhan, I think complained about it again recently. Like how is that allowed?
Yeah, it's amazing. Gottheimer is just a horrible.
And he took Grimm also reported he took made a $15,000 purchase of Northrop Grumman stock in September.
I mean, he is so odious, both as, in so many different ways. At least there's a certain consistency